Ready?
Welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Pat Martin here in the studio with my pal, Coach Chris Stewart. Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you. Don't we just look relaxed?
I'm relaxed.
Do you feel like the studio has a different, like the actual podcast? I mean, we know the studio has a different feel, but do you think the podcast has an actual different feel to it because of the way the studio setup is?
Probably.
Like, I wonder if we sound more relaxed, even when we're talking about topics that we get heated about.
Probably. I don't know. You know, because we didn't do. Did we do a video in the old studio?
Ever?
I don't think we did we?
We did. I did. We set up one. The first video podcast we did. You were at your house, and I was at the table sitting right.
But is that the only one we've done?
Yeah, and I set the camera up in front of me. Yeah.
So really, this feel is kind of like this is our.
We set it up for this purpose.
Video,
right? Not
feel.
just us. Like, there are other podcasts that are happening.
Right.
Hundreds of other podcasts that happen in the studio, and people are wanting to do more video podcasting as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is the look that you get when you watch like Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco talk, and
Jason and Travis,
Jason,
and
that other guy.
There would be a whole lot to talk about today after that game, wouldn't there? If you and I had any desire to.
Yeah.
After the Super Bowl.
I will say Mahomes didn't really. He seemed to handle himself a little better, and probably had some opportunities to be the baby that he has been throughout the course of the season.
Yeah. I'll say this too. I mean, maybe this contributed to making it easier for him to handle. I felt like the officiating in the Super Bowl was actually pretty good. I mean, relative to the rest of the season. I mean, if you compare what the officiating has been like you couldn't watch a Sunday of NFL or a Monday or a Thursday for that matter without the next day hearing about something that happened that was atrocious.
And I don't remember. I mean, I watched the whole game. I don't remember watching and saying, they should have let that go, or they could have called it.
I mean, they could have, there was holding a lot, but it was on both sides.
I remember one holding call that was like, it was on a big play, but it was a hold. I mean,
there were opportunities to call holds.
Oh, well,
you could see that, but you could pretty much see that on any NFL game or any game for that matter.
I like that. I don't know his name, but you just remember him by what they look like. But the main official, the one that's
the white hat,
the one that would talk.
Yeah,
I like him. I feel like when he has a crew on the field, that the game is usually pretty well officiated.
Maybe that's why he had the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they did a good job of picking those guys.
Yeah.
It was a good game.
It was. I mean, the one thing that people want us to talk about, and maybe we will at some point, I don't know, because it's not our topic for today, but the one thing that I've heard people say, you guys got to talk about this in your podcast, was Travis Kelce getting in Andy Reid's face, pushing, kind of giving him a nudge and getting in his face and shouting about whatever he was shouting about. He wasn't on the field, I guess, or I don't know. I mean, it was right after the fumbled play. They had a big 52 or 53 yard pass down the field. It was first down at like 14 or first and 10 at the 14, and they gave it to Pacheco, who had gained a lot of yards on the play. I mean, and had never fumbled all year long.
Yeah, I don't.
The right personnel, right play call. He just fumbled. Yeah.
I don't know what the difference would have been with Travis Kelce on the field, other than he just wanted to be on the field.
Yeah.
Which is a fair feeling, but you never behave that way to any coach, let alone how old is Andy Reid? He's probably
65 or 67.
Is that what he is?
Like that.
I was thinking he was closer to 70.
I think I've read that. Yeah, but the apologists for Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, and the apologists for the Kansas City Chiefs, or just the apologists for that situation, say, we don't understand the kind of relationship that these guys have with Andy Reid, particularly Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. It's more of a friendship, camaraderie type relationship, and that may very well be true. I agree. I mean, you can see that relationships change with coaches and players, the higher up you go. Like we talked about this before. A lot of college players call their coaches by first name.
Yeah.
Right? We know the professional players primarily call their coaches by first name or whatever name they go by. Still, everybody else's context who's watching the game, particularly young kids, right? High school kids. I mean, professional sports are influencing the trickle goes down, right? It doesn't go up. The trickle goes down. So everything that people see you guys do, it'll eventually make its way into the lower levels.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that we see, a lot of the antics, I guess, that we see in the lower levels, at some point you could point to somebody, they saw somebody on TV do it. And that's kind of what I feel like, at some point you do have to, it's not just you. It's not just about you. I mean, when you sign that contract and you're getting paid,
it is. Like they
say it is.
They're not role models.
I don't want to be a role model. Right. Well, you know what? Then you probably should quit.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the job. They have to talk to the media. That's part of the job.
Yeah, I'm confused about that too, because sometimes they don't.
And they get in trouble, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they get fined.
I think there's requirements that come. Well, let's call it what it is. There's responsibilities that come with your status.
Yes.
Right. Every role has responsibilities.
Yep.
And you might say, I have the right to do and say what I want, but with every right that we have,
there's a consequence.
There's consequences and responsibilities.
There's always a consequence. You make a decision, even if it's the right decision. There's still consequences of that right decision. You know what I mean? So there's consequences to everything you do. Maybe we could use that though as a talking point of saying, because I know this is a message that I've given my baseball teams and my basketball teams quite often, in that if you're going to say something to somebody, you better be sure that the relationship you have with that person is such that they're going to receive it in the way that it's beneficial to them. Because if your relationship isn't that good,
that's a great
then
point.
You're being detrimental. It doesn't matter, what they did or, where they're at or, what the context of the conversation is. If you don't have a relationship with that person that you're talking to, that it's going to be a positive conversation, there's no reason for you to say it.
And that's a great point, Pat, because that's probably also the answer to the question of why didn't Andy Reid bench him?
Right.
Right? Because everybody's like, well, gee, if he was playing for me, I mean, I said it. Dude's not playing past the first quarter if he's playing for me.
Right.
But that's probably what you just said is probably the reason why Andy Reid shrugged it off. And there's a good chance that Travis Kelce came up to him later off camera, right, where he wasn't on camera, and said, I was out of line, right, in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the game. And Andy Reid's like, better not ever do it again. Get your butt back in there. I mean, who knows? We don't know what all happens in those moments. But
yeah, sure. We only seen a little part of the story.
But maybe the fact that he knows the relationship that he has, there is that.
I think there's some value
it doesn't
in
take
that for
away.
sure.
Yeah, I'm not hardcore one way or the other with it. I don't like it. It's a terrible look.
Bumping into the guy though. I mean,
that's a little too much.
I don't know that what relationship would be.
Yeah, I mean, because I think about the people I'm close with. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know.
You're definitely being a sincere apology, because that's to me that's definitely crossing the line, no matter what your relationship is. But I remember when John Gruden and Rich Gannon. John Gruden coached the Raiders. Rich Gannon was the quarterback, and they yelled and cussed and just fought like brothers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I like that. I'm okay with that. And I'm like, there's some coaches out there say, well, I don't want my players talking back to me at all. And I want to teach my players to communicate, not necessarily talk back. And I know how it looks sometimes, but sometimes, I think in my coaching career, a player has talked back to me, but really that was our relationship, and we were conversing, and especially in a basketball situation,
you felt
everyone's
no disrespect,
yelling.
Right. There may have been perceived disrespect by someone up there in the stands or whatever, but because of the relationship, and they felt no disrespect.
Right.
They felt the comfort of being able to speak. It was fire and passion, but it might have appeared as disrespect,
right?
And that's a very real thing, and it's not always a black and white line, is it? It's not always there's a fine-tuned line there somewhere that we.
I think it'd be tough for does Travis Kelce have kids? He doesn't have kids, right? Because him and
Not that I'm aware of.
It'd be tough. Like if
Ask
like
Taylor Swift,
if
I
Jason right, if Jason Kelsey did that, how would he explain that to his kids? How would he explain that behavior to his?
Yeah. Boy, you talk about two different personalities there.
Oh man, I love Jason Kelsey.
I know I can't stand the Eagles, but I really do like Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, me too.
He seems like a guy we could hang out with. Yeah. And his wife not being able to put on the Kansas City stuff. I love that, man. I love it. I love that. It's like I just can't do it. I will not do it.
Heck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. What's her name? Kelsey, I think. The whole world knows who these people's families are. I think that's her name, Kelsey.
I don't know.
Is it Kelsey? That's right. Kelsey. That's not Casey.
Kelsey.
Yeah, that would be
Casey
Kelsey. That's not
know.
right, is it? Kylie. I think it's Kylie.
How do you know? Is she on the show? Or was it going like?
Well, I'll tell you how I know is I do these podcast previews with my students, where they will preview a podcast, and the first semester one of the students previewed just a podcast that they like, any podcast of their choice, and the first semester one of the students previewed the New Heights podcast, which is their podcast, and then just yesterday in class. This semester, one of the students chose that to plus it's Cleveland Heights, and more than half this campus is from Cleveland at Ohio University.
Really?
And,
is that a?
Oh man, everybody you ask, it seems like they're from. They say Cleveland, but it could be like the Cleveland area, right?
It's America
Mentor,
City.
Yeah. But
That's where all the good people are from.
I guess so. So yeah, cool.
So what's new? What's on the docket for today?
Well, I think of this every time we get ready to transition into a new sport. And I think of it whenever we transition from the high school sports season, which would be the spring season, to the summer season, which would be the off season for all sports, right? And I've had a couple conversations with people recently about their kids, basically asking, what do you think about this? My kid really loves sport A, and he doesn't really like sport B very much, but he still plays it. Should I encourage him to stop playing it, right? Or should I encourage him to play it if he desires to stop playing it? Those kinds of questions. So basically, the age-old common question: should you or should you not play multiple sports?
Yeah.
Should kids play multiple sports? And I know that you and I have addressed this on other podcasts before, but we're at episode 164.
Sure.
And sometimes when people start joining a podcast, they join right where you are, right? And they haven't heard us talk about this. And so I kind of think this is one of those topics that is worthy to circle back to from time to time, because it's always going to be relevant. It's always relevant.
It's always relevant, and I think the conversation is always changing, because I feel like I've seen lately, just on Twitter and different places, social media, where people are having this conversation, that it's almost as if people are kind of leaning. Like I feel like we went through a period where everyone's like, yeah, multi-sport, football, D1 football coaches. This is how many D1 football players played multiple sports in high school. You need to play multiple sports, play multiple sports. And now I almost feel like that it's the opposite is gaining some momentum, where people are saying, nah, you need to specialize now. There comes a point in your life where you need to pick one sport. And I feel like the problem is, as human beings, we always want an absolute answer. You know what I mean? And it's like,
for everyone. The same answer for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's either got to be yes, you have to play two sports, or no, you should only play one sport. Yeah. And there's never any conversation around that.
Right.
So
we're going to have a conversation around.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that. Yeah.
Well, I wonder. Like, are you looking? Is it like Twitter? Like, is it social medias where you're seeing this, TikTok and Twitter, things like that? Yeah. I wonder who those people are that are now, like, if the pendulum is swinging back toward, we need to champion specialization. I wonder if those are individual instructors who own a business,
right?
And so they train baseball players, or they train volleyball, or they own a volleyball club, right?
Yes.
Or they're whatever it might be, or is it a coach who's just really passionate about his sport? You got to play my sport, right? And you're gonna fall behind if you don't just work on my sport.
Yep.
Sometimes I see that as well.
And how about a parent of a kid that only plays one sport?
Well, yeah. I mean,
so
that's,
they're getting
that's true, too.
hammered with
Yes.
by people saying, "Oh,
Yeah, and so they feel like they need to defend themselves. Like, well, my kid only plays one sport, but he only likes one sport.
right,
That's okay too.
yes,
I would
yes.
still recommend for that parent. I would still recommend take him out mountain biking or climbing hills or mountains. Do something else because there's physiological reasons why you shouldn't play one sport.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about
Jump right into
why-
some reasons.
Yeah, like why you and I feel like playing multiple sports. Look at
Yeah, 'cause I feel-
both. There's pros and cons.
I feel like people know that our stance on this is that we're pro multi-sport athlete.
Sure.
You and I coach baseball at high schools.
Yeah,
What?
I'm dealing with one right now. And not only do I support multiple.
with the question. Well, you coach multiple sports.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying not only do I support multiple sports, but I have actually, I think it's fair to say that I support multiple sports in the same season. And if you want to talk about some challenging aspects, we can talk about some challenging aspects right there.
So you're saying that you have kids who want to play baseball and do track
And run track,
Yeah,
yeah.
the same season. So
And
that
I'm wondering, I've tried to think back, has there ever been basketball players that wrestle? Or, vice
good
versa,
question.
obviously.
Yeah. I mean, typically when we talk about multiple sports, we're talking about 2 or 3, right?
2 or 3 sports throughout the course of
Because
a year.
there are 3 seasons
Yes.
of high school sport: fall, winter, and spring.
Well.
And we're talking about high school, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, for our sake of our conversation today, we're talking. I think across the board, you and I feel like young kids should play as many sports as we can get them to play. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, but then you get to high school, and the questions begin. Right. Some of the other variables come into play. College, right? If they're high school. Let's just be honest. High school coaches want to work year round, and so I don't want to disappoint my high school coach, and
Right.
so that's a variable. There's lots of variables. And then, so we're talking about, okay, people who desire to play more than one sport in high school, we're typically thinking a fall sport, a winter sport, and a spring sport, or 2 of those.
Right.
You're talking about also that sometimes you have a kid who says, I would like to do 2 sports in the same season.
Sure.
And that's really tough.
Yeah,
but
of
it
course.
happens. It does happen.
All the challenges exist in that kind of amplified of what they are,
Yeah.
for being a 3-sport athlete.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about young kids too. Yeah, we think they should play as many sports and be in as many activities as they can. Encourage them to do that, though. You don't want to force them
Don't make
to do
them.
that. No,
Of course not.
Yeah, because it's counterproductive.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely encourage them to play,
And even
as
tell
many
them the
things they can.
reasons why. I mean, we're going to go into some of the reasons here today, and maybe that would be helpful to you. But if you have a kid that's just like, Dad, I don't like football, or I don't like baseball. I just want to play basketball or whatever. Yeah, I get it. I mean, if their passion is in it and they're the one that's driving the desire to go and do this one sport, that's great. I would still encourage them to have maybe a month in the year where you just put the glove and bat down, or put the ball down, put the whatever it is that you're down. Everything except the weight room. Don't take a break from that. Don't take a break from your strength and your fitness and your agility and your ability to become a better athlete by growing in that way. But take a break from your sport and maybe do something else to work some other directional, physiological, aspects of your body where you're moving in different directions, you're using different body parts. But I don't know. But there's a lot of other variables too that I would say that you're missing if you're only playing one sport.
Sure.
Like the competition variable, the mental aspect of it, the camaraderie, the teammate, the skills that you're building for life. I mean, there's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's start with that one, the competition, because this is the one that I've always really just, people ask me, this is the one that I always jump on of, well, I want to work on being a better football player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if you want to be a better football player, then play basketball.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what? And what's
All
how
your
does that-
footwork will become.
But I'm not very good at basketball. Perfect.
That's great.
That's even better.
That's even better. Yeah.
Because when you're out there, if you're playing a sport that does not come natural to you, a sport that you haven't put as much time into, that when you get out there and play, it's not it doesn't. You don't. The flow of the game, you don't have to think about as much, right? I would say your awareness,
Yeah.
and if you have a sport like that, a lot of times when you go to another sport, it's really difficult because you don't feel that way, right? You're hesitant, you're slow because the way the game flows, you're trying to catch up with that.
Yeah.
So you're going against this tide, this challenge of the flow of the game, just trying to be as good as you can be. And as you go through, if you go through a season like this, so I've told my kids that, if you want to be a better
stuff, man.
basketball player,
Yeah.
play baseball.
Yeah.
How does that work? Well, because when you stand up and you're facing a kid,
one-on-one.
yeah,
Mano a
one-on-one,
mano,
absolutely.
yeah.
When you're facing a kid, you stand up there and you're looking for a fastball down the middle, and there's that anxiety and uncertainty of where that ball's coming, and you don't feel good about the situation that you're in, and you're competing, like you said, the competition factor, and then you transition that feeling that you have in that moment to the feeling that you have when you're standing at the foul line shooting foul shots, where you're at home, where you're comfortable, where you have a lot more trust in your skills and your understanding of the game. It makes you that much more comfortable, that much more.
I tell you, I have had this thought go through my head standing in the third base coach's box in a baseball game, and that is this: player steps in the box, game on the line, runner at second base, tying run, 2 outs. It's on his shoulders. I have had this thought go through my mind. I've got confidence in this guy because I also saw him stand at the free throw line during a big moment in a basketball game where they needed those free throws, and that pressure didn't get to him. Or that pressure helped build his mental strength so that when he's standing here now, you're nervous, but you've been here before.
Right.
And even though he may not have been there in that box before, he's been in this moment before, this competitive moment where the game is on the line and he's got to make the play.
Right.
And you don't get that in the weight room. And again, we're not saying don't lift weights. We're just saying you don't get that in personal training. We try to create. Some coaches will be like, buddy, we create competition. You don't create that. You can't create that.
Right.
It's impossible to create that.
Yeah.
Your entire team
100% to simulate it.
Yes.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And you talk about something that prepares you for the other sport that you love more, right? It's going to be the sport that you're not as good at, like you said. Those are great aspects. Those are great points. The compete point is huge. The compete point is huge. If a kid says, or if somebody answers, no, the answer, should you specialize? Yeah, by the time you get to a certain age, you should specialize, right? The question I would ask is why? Why?
Right.
And I don't want you to answer it. I want the kid to answer it.
Yeah.
I don't want dad to answer it. I don't want coach to answer it. I want the kid to answer it. If you're going to do this, the question is why, right? So you got to know your why. And what I mean by that is, why do you play the sport? Why are you playing high school sports? What's your purpose, right? What's the reason why you're playing in high school? What are your goals beyond high school? The kid, not the dad, not the coach, the kid, right? Not every kid wants to. I've been there. I had a kid that everybody in the community, all of these college coaches, everybody that saw him play, his parents, all of his coaches thought he should play college baseball. He was going to play college baseball, Division I baseball. Everybody's calling him. He's not calling him back. These coaches are like, why isn't this guy calling me back? I finally nailed him down. And with tears in his eyes, he told me, Coach, I don't want to play in college. It's like, okay, that's okay. But it didn't feel okay to him because everybody felt like they knew he would be a great college player, right? Like, what do you mean? You don't want to play in college? Look how good you are. Well, just because someone's good doesn't mean that they want to continue to do it at the next level. They might want to. They're ready to turn the page. It's okay.
And just because they're not good doesn't mean they don't want to do it.
Exactly.
People say that all the time to me. I'm like, hey, you coming out for baseball? I'm not good at baseball. Well, that's not what I asked you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you like it?
Right. Do you like your friends?
I like it. Then why wouldn't you come out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun time. I mean, it's exercise that you don't have to think about. I mean, it's not like getting on a treadmill. You got to make yourself exercise. If you're not going to go choose to play a sport, you got to make yourself stay in shape.
That's true.
Somehow, right?
That's true.
It's accountability.
I would say Jake would attest to that at this age.
Exactly. Yeah. Because he didn't play basketball,
didn't
right?
play
So he's had to
basketball.
make himself stay in shape during the winter,
Yeah.
because he played football and he plays baseball. So
And he's
had
been
some
in the
time
weight
off.
room, but he's missed a lot of cardio.
But you're missing
Cardio
that. You're
that
missing
you-
that constant
Yes,
effort.
movement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, you're missing. You got to find a way to keep yourself mentally in shape, right? The accountability, academically, of playing a sport in all 3 seasons is tremendous. Is tremendous.
It is.
There's so
And
many.
that you could even say that's a con to playing 3 sports too. You know, that's a challenge. I would say it's tough.
Learning time management.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
A con
I think,
that becomes a pro.
time management. Good point. I think that's a point that people make. You know, well, specialize because that gives you more time to work on, you know, the sport that you're good at or the sport that you can be most successful at.
You know, that argument to me used to be like, "Ooh, that's a tough one to defend. That's a tough one that's a tough one to argue, right?"
I can't believe for you it would be.
But
Because that's my argument.
well, here's the thing.
Go follow Coach Stewart around in a day
All
of
the
his
things that
life
I
and
do.
see everything that he does, and then come back and tell
Well,
me.
that's
you can't
true.
find it.
There's a testimony. Yeah, like I've got a real job, right, that I get paid to do, get paid more to do, right? I've got so day-to-day job. I lead, we lead a church. We planted and pastor a church, coach high school baseball, right? We do this podcast, and so now I'm teaching as well. So that's
Yes.
actually not my job. Isn't as a faculty? Mine is not to be a faculty instructor, but it's now something new that I do. And I'm not bragging about this, but I'm just saying you're right. That is an example. You can get it done.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can do it, right? I mean,
can.
that's one of. I mean, I don't think that's a great argument anymore. Of it gives you more time to. You're going to still find time. If you let's say you love baseball and baseball is your sport, right? And you're considering not playing basketball. Well, the reason why that example came to mind is because I actually had a couple kids that was there, and I actually talked them into playing basketball. I didn't talk them into. I mean, like. I encouraged them to play. They obviously have to make their own decisions. I know that their parents wanted them to play as well, so they were getting it from home as well, and they ended up playing. And they don't regret it, right? They don't. I mean, I never heard anybody regret playing a sport. I've always heard people regret not playing a sport. You only
Sure.
get 4 years
Right.
in high school, and so the thing that I would tell people is, listen. I lost my train of thought, but I've got a whole nother one that I can start up here. I mean, in terms of a pro for a
Well,
while.
there are you.
Oh, the
The
number of
argument
things.
is time
yes, I won't
management.
have time, right?
Yeah.
I won't have time. You will have time. You will have time. You can make time, right? You can carve out time to work on the sport that you really love.
Everybody has the same amount of time,
Exactly.
and there's plenty of multi-sport,
Exactly.
3-sport, you know, dual sport, multi-sport athletes in the world.
Yeah.
They figure it out.
Listen, I watched kids go from our baseball practice. Joe Burrow's class, okay, the class of 2015. That was the spring season. Okay, 2014 was his football season. Some really good athletes in that class. Okay, most of those athletes played 3 sports. Or I should say this: most of them played 2 sports. A lot of them played 3. So Joe was a 2-sport guy. I know that he's listed as a 3-sport. They said he ran track. No, it was on some ticker. You know, his.
Oh boy, here we go. Now
his
everyone's
rookie
going to start
year
saying all
for
these
the Bengals.
all these multi-sport athletes really aren't. They just
He is
listed
he was multi-sport.
Well, I know.
Basketball, football, right?
He was a great basketball player.
To be a multi-sport, you only really need to play more than one.
Right.
Right. I think in this past year's draft, if you look up the numbers, this past year's NFL draft, I've got it written down. I've got it written down somewhere. I don't want to get it wrong. Maybe it wasn't this year's. It might have been the 2020. It may have been last year's NFL draft. Of the 32 first-round draft picks, 27 played one additional sport other than football in high school. 10 of the 32 played 2 other sports, which means they played 3 sports in high school. These are first-round football draft picks. Mm-hmm. If anybody tells you that you cannot play or should not play, you should specialize in order to be able to make it. I'm telling you, they're full of crap.
Yeah.
They're full of crap. Don't listen. It just continues to be proven over and over and over again.
I actually think, I don't know where you dug that up, but I actually think that
I think it was an FHS website. It was an article in the
Oh,
National
really? Okay,
Federation
good.
of High School Sports.
Well, we could talk about NFHS and OHSA a little bit here, can't we?
Well, it's not NFHS. The problem, I know where you're going, and we will get there. I want to get there. That's OHSAA.
Yeah.
That's our state organization.
Right. But I think the Twitter message that I remember seeing was, I'm sick of everyone citing these, professional players that are multi-sport athletes because they're the exception to the rule. But that's why you specialize, right? So that you
can become the exception.
Yeah, right. So that, I was like, I don't know. Your argument.
It's not a very good argument.
It's not a very good argument
yeah.
because you're trying to be an exception to the rule. Yeah. And if you want to be the exception to the rule, wouldn't you follow the same pattern, the same path that those exceptions follow? Yeah. So it's tricky. And I know people, there's a lot of, people are passionate about the conversation, passionate about the topic. So anytime you have that, you're going to have polarizing opinions.
And I'm telling you, the most polarizing opinions come from the people who are really passionate about their sport.
Yeah.
Or the sport that they train people for, right? Yeah. Anybody who trains bodies, like a sports, like a sports science or what Brock get his degree in? Exercise physiology, strength training, whatever. I mean, actual just creating athletes with strength training. They will have the same opinion that you and I have.
Yeah.
You're going to become a more well-rounded athlete if you do use your muscles in multiple sports. It's the coach who's really passionate about his sport and my sport and my season, and I got to have you here with me all the time in order for me to be successful, let's be honest, right?
Right.
That's one of the reasons why. But also, they'll sell it to you in this way. In order for you to get to the next level, you're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
I
think that's short-sighted.
That's
it's naive.
ignorant. Yeah, it's short-sighted and it's ignorant.
Yeah, because you're becoming a better athlete.
Yeah.
In more ways than just
you're becoming a better person too. Because go back to your why. Right?
Yes.
I mean, the truth is, like I said, the one example, a lot of kids don't care about playing in college.
Right.
Some want to, and some are going to some think they want to, and then get to college and they find out.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Right.
Right. But how about your development in social skills, leadership skills, your work ethic skills, your competitive drive? You're going to be sitting in interviews where 17, 18 other people are going to be interviewing for that same job, and you're going to be nervous about it, and you got to compete for that job. You got to tell them why they should hire you instead. That confidence that you bring into it comes from playing these multiple sports while you're in high school. The sports that we play when we're young prepare us for a lifetime of success. And the more sports we play, the more opportunities we have to develop these skills that are needed for life success, for where you and I are now, where you're going to spend the majority of your life. That's the thing that people don't think about. Right. You spend the majority of your life not being able to play these sports.
True.
So why not play as many as you can right now?
Yeah, really. You're talking 12 years for the most part. You know what I mean?
Well, from the time that you start elementary school and get to high school. But like a lot of kids give it up in high school when you only have 4 years left.
True.
That's it.
Right.
4 years.
Right.
And the rest of your life. Yeah, I will never encourage a kid to just focus on baseball. I just won't do it.
I won't.
As a baseball
I won't
coach.
do that either. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, I do the opposite. Now, you said you did too. I want my kids, even the dangers of football.
Yeah.
My oldest son plays football. Maya hasn't quite got there yet, but I'm not I'm not telling him not to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, if he wants to, he'll play.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a big factor too. And I know I mentioned it before, but if you like the game, you like being around it. That's their play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Don't worry about anything else because you like you said, you'll find the time to work on your craft. You'll find the time to develop further. And by the way, by playing that other sport, that's exactly what you're doing. Same time.
Yeah.
On top of that, we talk, talking about physiology or sports science and things like that. We know from studies and surgeons and pediatric doctors and things like that. overuse injuries
Yes.
are very, overuse injuries are some of the most common injuries in sports that we have right now.
I have two. I can read you two quotes. From,
Okay,
I
good.
actually looked up. Well, do you
Is it
have one
related to
too?
this?
These are
No.
studies.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. So
About overuse injuries?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And this and what this means is, think about, if you're playing baseball 12 months out of the year, your arm's moving in the same direction, your hips are moving in the same direction, you're putting the same torque on your front foot. If you're a pitcher, if you're, when you're swinging, while there's a lot of variation to the movements we have, there are very common movements that you do in the game of baseball, as is in
Every
sports.
sport, right.
Not just using baseball as an
and there are
example.
movements that you don't do in those sports. Like
Yes.
they're like I think of a sport like football, like a football lineman, for example.
Yes.
Right. You want those guys to more and more these days. I think that the training is speed.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, we want them
Well,
to be
the
big
faster
and
the better,
strong,
yeah.
but more agile, more
Sure.
So why not have your linemen play basketball?
Right.
Or other sport where they've got, because they're only going to be moving one direction for you. I mean, that's not true. I know that they go in other directions.
Yeah, but point taken.
They're firing one direction.
By
most part.
playing basketball, they're getting more work in their agility. We'll just say that in their overall agility.
Think about the rotation, the trunk rotation they get by playing baseball.
Absolutely.
I mean, or other. I don't know what other sports. I mean,
I'll
these
tell
are the
you.
ones that you and I know the most about.
I'll tell
the
you a
ones we talk
sport that
about.
I may be falling in love with, and that's wrestling.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know nothing about wrestling.
There's a guarantee that your toughest football players also wrestle.
Yeah,
You
a lot
can
of
almost
them do.
guarantee it. I could count them at Athens High
I'm
School.
getting goosebumps
I can
because
think
of-
back through it. Yeah.
I just think about a kid getting off the mat after his or her shoulders have been pinned to the ground.
Yeah.
And to stand up in front of all these people defeated
And acknowledge that
as
you
a failure
lost.
and acknowledge it and shake hands with and the official and it's just like, that's powerful. I mean, you're developing right there.
So you're for the handshake line in wrestling.
Yes, even during COVID.
Oh yeah, they weren't allowed to handshake.
Some of the rules
They
that
weren't
we
allowed
had
to
in
shake
COVID were
hands.
very dumb.
Man,
Let's
it
be
was
honest.
bizarro world. Wasn't it? They could wrestle and rub body fluids all over each other, but they couldn't shake hands.
Right.
Oh boy.
So the
Here's the
studies,
study.
overuse
Here's the study. This
studies,
is according to a study conducted by the University of Wisconsin, 46% of growing athletes who specialized in a single sport suffered a lower body injury. Specialized in a single sport, 46% of them suffered a lower body injury, which was nearly twice the 24% rates of kids who played multiple sports.
That's a good data right
an
there, because
actual
you
number.
can't say that if you play multiple sports you will not suffer an injury.
Well, no.
It happens. I mean, that's the life of an athlete, but twice as many.
But the chances, the opportunity for your body to develop greater elasticity,
absolutely
right, and which helps prevent injury,
Yep.
is higher. The opportunity for your body to develop that is higher if you're moving multiple different directions.
Yeah.
Here's a study from the National Federation of High School Sports, because they do this as well. Study from the National Federation of High School Associations revealed that high school athletes that specialize in a single sport are 70% more likely to suffer an injury during their season than those that participate in multiple sports. So this is, the first one was growing athletes, so it was more broad. This is high school athletes. I guess their study, and we don't know how many they studied, how many years they studied, but the number that they came up with is 70% more likely to suffer an injury playing one sport.
Yeah.
And so physiologically, players playing a variety of sports are going to be developing a wider range of skills, but also they're going to be working greater number of muscle groups, which are going to help them develop the ability to be more agile.
And on that same note, that's one of the reasons that we're such big supporters of the weight room and agility training and speed and strength training, because that is one of the best things you can do for injury prevention is you can't approach it the same way, because a lot of people in the past would say, well, if you lift weights you get tight and that'll cause injuries too. So but that's why
and it becomes one of the arguments too. It's like, wow, man, I don't want to stop lifting weights to play baseball or to play basketball. Let me ask you, you guys going to be lifting during your season?
Yeah.
You betcha. We're going to be ending our practices in the weight room.
Yeah, and that I think that's a culture thing that everyone should embrace as well. I mean, even as an individual athlete, get up early in the morning, go lift weights.
There you
even
go.
if your program isn't providing it, go
Yeah.
lift weights. By the time game days
That's true,
included,
because there could be athletes listening to say, "Well, that's great that you guys do that," but they're,
Right.
they're going to be, the team I play on, we don't do that. And
Right.
I want to stay strong. Okay.
Yeah.
You got 24 hours in a day. Is your team practicing for 24 hours? I know you
Exactly.
got to sleep. We know you got to go to school, but you got the time.
and you can lift on practice days
Sure.
and game days.
Oh, you better.
Do it. Yeah, right. Football coaches, there's two ways of, or there's two schools of thought for football coaches in track. One is do it.
Do you see balloons going on? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it. Although I feel like we've seen that before.
Well, look, hey, what's going on there? Do you see
I
that?
don't see balloons.
There's a thumbs up now.
I think it was because I made a great point.
That's what it is.
I don't know.
The program that we use to record these podcasts, it just knows you're about to make a great point, and so it's like
check
balloons.
this.
Okay.
No, I didn't see it. But some football coaches say run track; it'll make you a better football player. Some football coaches say don't run track. Oh, because you lose muscle mass.
Oh, because of the
running.
and
it's not
the aerobic exercise.
Yes.
It's not anaerobic.
right. Run
Which
track.
one's right?
Yeah, right. I mean, they're both right, right? It can be,
Or both wrong?
or both wrong. Yeah, true. Lift, right? Continue to lift
While you're running track.
While you're running track.
Yeah.
And then that fixes the issue.
Yeah, it
that
does. It does.
You're talking about.
Listen, my sport. I stopped playing football and I ran cross country, and I didn't. As I got to be a junior, senior in high school,
Cross country's horrible
I was
for
small.
explosive athletes.
I was. You talk about one of the most mentally challenging sports.
You're not a kid.
Running sports are the most mentally challenging. I told my football buddies, I said, guys, this was a mistake. I said, I understand football pain because I had it. I played it, right? This pain doesn't go away. Like once you start feeling it and you're running, you're like, I got another 12 miles. I mean, I'm talking about practice, right? We would run a lot of miles in practice.
You're all by yourself.
And you're all by yourself, and you got to keep going. And it's good. But I didn't like cross country. I ran it. I hated it. Hated every minute of it. But I did it. Yeah, I shouldn't say every minute of it. I really enjoyed the finish when we came, because that feeling. Well, you also I should say it's not always painful because you do get that what they call runner's high, right? That you get that extra gear where it's like, okay, my legs don't feel as heavy
because now you're running through like Rome and Italy.
Well, yeah, on the
those
iFit
places.
program. Yeah,
right.
Today I was in Croatia.
There you
But what was the point I was making?
Hated it.
I'm doing my Patrick Mahomes impression right here.
You ran it.
Oh
or you
yeah.
hated it?
I hated it, but I didn't like it. And but I love baseball. And I was kind of in my mind, I was doing it because I knew that there were some aspects of that was going to help me for baseball.
Absolutely.
However, I also had a guy, one of my uncles, my Uncle Roger, who trained boxers. He trained baseball players. His son could have played professional baseball. His son was phenomenal. His other son, Rusty, is a phenomenal musician, and I love the fact that Roger didn't push him to play. I mean, Rusty was a good baseball player too, but he didn't push him that direction. He let him explore his music talent. So anyway, Roger said, "Look, you need to get bigger. You're skinny." He just looked at me. He's like, you're junior in high school. You weigh 135 pounds. You're too skinny. And come out and train with me. I said, all right, cool. He gave me a nutrition plan. We worked out together. I gained 30 pounds. I still graduated at 165. Not a lot. That's not very heavy.
Well,
but for me, it was
significantly
right?
heavier
And here's
than
what it did.
135, yeah.
I showed up to cross country my senior year. Coach Oliphant's like, you look a little slower. Can you see him? He was right. I wasn't a bad cross country runner. Like my best time was 17:21. Now it was at Jackson. It was at Jackson's course, which was a little short, we were told, because mostly. So I don't really. You can't count that as your best time. I think Jackson's course was a couple of tenths of a mile short.
So it's not an official.
It was a
course.
golf course, but it had a big hill, and the way they laid it out, it was a little short. Everybody ran a good time there. But at the regional meet at Lancaster, my sophomore year, which was my first year, I ran cross country. I ran an 18:30, and that would have been my or low 18s. I don't know. But I did. I went to the regional. Actually, it would have been my junior year. My junior no, it was my sophomore and junior year. I went to the regional and didn't my senior year. I couldn't get into the 18s my senior year because I'd gained some weight and it wasn't good for distance running. Gaining weight, muscle is good for sprinting, good for explosiveness, which is what I was wanting to build because I love baseball. But I still ran cross country. I still played basketball. I did not play basketball my senior year. I was a 2-sport athlete my senior year, but 3 sports all the way through up to that point. But yeah, in my mind, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm enjoying time with my friends, right? I've got other friends who are running, building some good relationships with people. Great relationship with Coach Oliphant. I love him to this day, right?
Good guy.
And I would not have developed that relationship with him, with Mike Kennedy, who was his intern at the time, if I hadn't done that. And so I love the fact that I did it, but I was doing it while knowing baseball is my love. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to excel in. That's what I want to play in college, right?
Right.
And so it's I don't know. It can be done. It should be done.
Yeah. I mean,
let's talk about another reason
that we should.
That kids should play multiple sports.
Okay.
And this is going to be one that some people might hear and go, that's selfish. But let's talk about it. The size of your school.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right? You're in the friendship, like your school, your friendship and teammates. Let's just call it that. Like, let's combine all that together because there's aspects of this. So you and I, Coach, we live in rural towns where our schools are smaller. Your school is a little bigger than mine, which is our alma mater, but it's still small.
Right.
It's still, which means we need the athletes to play as many sports as they can, as they would, as we can get them to play, in order for all of our athletic programs to be successsul.
Right. Our participation percentage is down across the board as well. Like, based on the number, I guarantee that a larger percentage of kids when I was in school participated in a sport than what they do now.
Oh yeah,
I think it's a society
I would
thing.
Say it is. There are more options.
Yeah, right.
But I would say this, some people.
I don't think that's
some people think that the small school kids going to a small school is detrimental for them athletically. I actually feel like it's a benefit. And I think the benefit of being part of a small school is that you can play multiple sports. Mm-hmm. You get the the reason why a lot of kids don't play multiple sports in these larger, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 student schools is because they can't. They'll go try out and they get cut.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, Brock, if we'd have stayed in St. Louis, Brock would have gone to Hazelwood Central High School, which had almost 3,000 students in it at the time. There were 3 Hazelwood schools, Central, East, and West. They were all huge schools. And so I was working at a church there in St. Louis, and so we had kids that went to all those different Hazelwood schools. And of all the kids that went to those high schools, and we had some athletes that came that were in our youth ministry, I only met one kid who was a multi-sport athlete.
Wow.
I only met one kid in our church. Our church was big, 1,000 people or more. But one kid in our youth group, in our youth ministry, played soccer and baseball. So he was on sort of the fall and spring, right, like Jake is right now. And I asked him. Dan, his name was Dan. I said, what's that like? And he said, I just happened to be able to make the team in both of them. He was good athlete. And I said, you ever considered trying out for basketball? And he's like, there's no way I'd make the basketball team. I'm like, really? Because I'm still thinking about Megs, right? I'm still thinking about the small schools that we have. I'm like, what do you mean you wouldn't make it? He goes, dude, have you ever seen the guys that play basketball for our school? Like, I'm not tall enough for one. I know I wouldn't make it. It's a small college practically. And so these guys who are part of these bigger schools, they have fewer multi-sport athletes because there's more opportunities to choose the athletes that you want to
exactly.
win with.
It's really not an option for them to play.
It really isn't.
More than one sport. And that's not, to be clear, we're not
we're speaking
talking
in
down to these
generalizations
people.
too. No,
you know what I mean? They can't. That's not. They're not less of athletes because they're not able to do it.
Yeah. But they got to find ways to fill in those gaps. There's going to be gaps.
Absolutely.
So all the things that we're talking about are they're still realities. You just if you in a situation where it's out of your control and you can't play multiple sports, well, you got to find ways.
Sure.
Right. Become a rock climber. Get out and run. Do something. Join a competitive weightlifting or something. I mean, you do something. Right. Besides
softball.
Co-eds, nope. I can't do it.
But yeah, you're right. If I'm out here, because we have the baseball program at Meg's, we have pretty decent numbers. I mean, compared to the other programs,
other schools that are similar in size.
Maybe
Same is true
I'm
for
just,
us.
I'm not for sure, but you have good numbers in baseball.
I mean, there are most schools that are
Actually,
Division
you have really
4,
good numbers.
right? Most schools that are in our same division don't field a JV team.
Right.
Like one of the best baseball programs in this division in Ohio is White Oak. And they've got 14 guys year in, year out.
Isn't that something?
Now, I don't know if that's his choice or, I mean, the school's very small. Rushi, who just was in the state championship a couple years ago, won the state championship a couple years ago.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you
very, very
that.
small. But it's just, it's we do have good numbers.
But if you started telling all your baseball players, you started convincing all your baseball players not to play any other sport.
Well, one, the other coaches would hate me.
Well, true.
Rightly so. They should, right?
Well, yeah, because they would be fired because they're released because there wouldn't be teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you become this school that is known as, well, they're just a one sport school.
Right. It's not good for your
culture.
culture. It's not good for your school.
It really isn't.
No, it's not good for your school. Impact your culture. Impact your community. Community involvement. I mean, all the, there's a lot of bad things.
People, one of the cool things about Meg's, and people notice this about Meg's, a lot of people come to all the games, to all the sports, right? The fan factor, the community factor. I mean, I know that there's pluses and minuses. There's positives and negatives to every community, right?
Yeah, we really like to
really
complain, so we all
regardless of how good or how bad your program is from one year to the next, because everybody will have up years and down years, right?
Sure.
But that you've got great community support when the crowd is the same.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to a game tonight. I mean, everybody knows our basketball team has not had as many wins this year as they've historically had the opportunity to have. Like sometimes you have up years, sometimes you have down years. They're still pretty young, right? They're building.
Sure.
I'll go to the game tonight. It'll be packed. I love that. I love the fact that we're here because we're here. Yeah, we play to win. We coach to win. We train to win. But we're here whether you win or lose.
Sure.
That's a community thing that is built because they're used to. They know that you're trying to help all these kids, and they see these kids in other sports as well playing your sport.
Yeah.
That you happen to be playing, that season.
And the more unity you have between programs, the better it is for that field, for the community involvement.
For sure.
They appreciate that more. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Everyone's on the same team. Everyone's on the same side. So.
Yeah, there are obstacles.
I don't think that's selfish at all. I think it
isn't.
That's actually
it isn't.
It's very relevant.
Yeah. Well, one of the obstacles that we are running into right now in Ohio is, and this is probably one of those things that caused me to think about wanting to talk about this today, because we're approaching baseball season. For us, baseball begins on Monday, so we're less than a week away from the first day of practice. And last week, the boys basketball teams in our district had their district draw. Do they do it the same weekend for every district in the state?
You know what's funny about that is I don't even know if they do a draw anymore.
It's not a draw. It's seeding, basically.
Yeah.
It's a seeding.
They do. I think boys
it's
are
all
the same.
girls are the same, and all
yeah.
boys. Yeah, because the tournament eventually they have to have the same amount of time between the time you begin playing the sectional to the time that you get to the state. So yeah. So I found my brother texted me, for example, my brother who coaches baseball at Fisher Catholic High School.
Right.
And he said, check this out. Baseball begins on February 19th. That's what we call mandatory practice, right?
Yep, right.
Where you can say you got to be here if you want to play.
If you're a non-winner athlete.
If you're not playing basketball,
right,
or wrestling still,
yeah,
or other winter sport you might be playing, right? So it's required for anybody that wants to play baseball who's not currently playing a winter sport. So that means that you're waiting on those other athletes to finish their winter sport.
Yep. So
the problem that we're facing in Ohio right now is in the Central District where my brother is, and it's happening in all districts probably. their basketball team plays their very first sectional tournament game on March 14th. Nope. He told me his first scrimmage is March 14th. What did he say? March 9th or something like that? March 2nd was their first basketball? Yeah, March 2nd. March 2nd. That's what it is. March 2nd. They play their very first sectional basketball game on March 2nd. Now, I don't know if that's because they're good and they got a higher seed and they're waiting on a team to play or whatever. Yeah.
How could that be?
Yeah. I kid you not.
So does Eastern play next Tuesday?
Eastern plays on Tuesday, so that's February 20th.
So does Megs.
That's one day after the baseball season has begun. Okay?
Right.
Well, and I'll just use this as an example. Eastern's got a pretty low seed, right?
Right.
They don't have a great record. So they have a pretty low seed. So that means that even whether you got a high seed or a low seed, for example, you might have a basketball team that there's a good chance they're going to lose in the first round, right, or the second round. And in past years, if your basketball team did not advance very far in the tournament, then all those kids were available at the start of baseball. The same is true for football, right? If your football team same is true for basketball. If your football team didn't advance very far in the tournament or didn't make the playoffs, then all those kids are available. They got like a week off, and then you got basketball season starting. Well, it overlapped this year.
Yeah.
And then now our seasons are tremendously overlapping for like my brother.
Right.
They're definitely overlapping for us if your team wins the first round.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he said if his team wins the first round, if his basketball team wins the first round, they'll play a second game a couple days later, right? And that pushes it back even further. His first scrimmage is on March 14th. A lot of these kids are going to be getting out of basketball and missing 3 weeks of practice,
Yeah.
and going right into baseball games. So we have this tremendous overlapping of sports right now, and I wonder sometimes if the people who are wearing the suits in our organization in the state think about our smaller rural town schools.
Sure.
Because in Columbus, where they make these decisions, a lot of those schools are Division I schools, and a lot of those athletes that play in those sports are just like the ones that you and I talked about. They don't play multiple sports.
Right.
And
they're not held up
the
at
fact
all.
that these seasons are overlapping isn't a big deal.
Right.
It is a big deal. It's a huge deal to my brother. To his school is smaller than the school I coach in. It's a huge deal to our smaller schools where, for him, his first 2 or 3 weeks of practice, he might have, I don't know how many of his kids play basketball. He might have 4 kids there at baseball practice waiting.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then, you got to, think about we're talking about injuries. Think about the challenges that presents.
Getting them prepared for the next sport.
Regardless of how many you have. If you just had 3 that you're waiting on, those kids are so far behind when they come to practice that, it's hard for them to catch up and to be ready.
I'll tell you, you know what that's going to do? Listen, if you're from the OHSAA, listen to this now. All right? This is a challenge for our smaller schools. That's going to further push the argument for these people to play one sport.
Right. And, absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
And we don't agree. I don't agree with it. I still do not agree with it.
And neither does the OHSAA.
Exactly.
So we're putting
so help us out here. And and this all started really. It started because they extended the football season essentially 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. They started it 1 week late, and then let's just be honest. You would have to try to not make the playoffs anymore. Like it used to be. It used to be an honor to just make the playoffs in football,
absolutely.
right? Because the top 8 teams in your region made it. So you had to win, and you had to play a good schedule, right? You couldn't play a cupcake schedule, and you had to win. There are teams that are making the playoffs now that have 1 win,
right?
So you got to try hard to not make the playoffs now, pretty much.
It's easier to make it. We'll just say
Oh, sorry. You guys didn't make it this year.
I don't think Megs made it this year.
And it also depends on your region. I mean, if your region's pretty weak, then you could be a weak team and make it.
Yeah.
Right. Your region was a little tougher. So
yeah. Well, and that's
there
are
tougher,
teams.
actually. You had a pretty tough region.
And I think looking at the way the games played out, like no 16 seed ever wins. Like no 16 seed has one. Like the highest is like maybe the 14th or 11th or something like that. It's
Yeah.
only happened 2 or 3
I think
times.
there was one, like might have been one good game between a 16 and a 1
Yeah,
this year. So
something
people are like,
like that.
see,
Right.
it can happen.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, well, and okay, that's fine. If we're gonna do it that way, just start the football season earlier.
Yeah, or
Start it earlier.
or push baseball season out further.
Or push the other seasons further back.
Continue
Right?
back.
I'd be fine with that.
I mean,
I would certainly be fine with
our
that.
state championship is in.
It's already
the
after
1st of
school
June.
anyway.
Yeah, it's after school.
We're playing
so-
most of our playoff games when school's winding down.
Yeah,
pretty much.
You know why they won't do that?
I don't know.
Because that interferes with football practice in the summer.
Summer football practice.
No, just kidding. But seriously, it would. I mean, the further you keep pushing back, the harder it is to get these things started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's got to be an answer.
There does.
But-
There does. And I'd be willing. And listen, you and I mean, we don't like just complaining about things. If we're gonna make what sounds like a complaint or a criticism, I like using that word because it's more of a criticism is what it is.
Yeah.
Then we always say we better be willing to help come up with solutions.
Sure.
I would be more than glad to.
Yeah,
As someone whose boots are on the ground, coaching, and who not just coaching a sport, but is a promoter of kids playing as many sports as they want to play.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would be willing to sit in a room and help with this.
Yeah, we got to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It needs to be something that we're we talk about officials, umpires a lot right now because it's the numbers are down.
They're down.
And I think OHSAA has done a good job about putting that message out there that, hey, we need to treat these folks a little better than we have in the past because, we're losing them. It's harder to find them. It's harder to make sure we have as many that we need to, to have JV and varsity games and so forth and so on and so forth. They do a good job when, that they focus on something. And I think that's just, we have to do that for, like you said, the smaller areas because if my baseball players just played baseball, I said my. I always say my. That's okay. They are my guys.
This season they're yours, right? Yeah.
It would hurt. It would hurt our athletics at Meggs, and it would be true for any other sport. But.
One of the things that we need to do, one of the things that we can do as coaches to help that is to go back to what you just said. I know it was just funny that you said my, right? Because we feel a close connect, like these are our kids, right? We do have to recognize that we are sharing them as coaches.
Yeah, well, and
they're
that's
not
the
our
thing.
kids, right?
The football players, they're my guys too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? The basketball players, I'm not coaching.
They're our guys.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Whether
they're
they
ours.
play baseball
Right.
or not, these because I'm going and supporting these. I'm going to football games, going to basketball. We're going to support these kids no matter what.
Absolutely.
And so there's a reason why you would feel that way.
Sure.
But I'm also I'm also, even though they're my kids while they're playing for my sport, I'm still gonna encourage them to play your sport as
Absolutely.
well,
Well, that's
whoever
what
you are. Yeah.
I feel that there's too much value in not doing that. I feel like you're cheating them if you're doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that they enjoy. I talked to an individual last night. He's a junior, kind of on the fence about whether he wants to play baseball this season. I said, "You playing this season?" I don't think I'm going to. I'm like, "Well, why not?" I just kind of fell out of love with it. I don't really want to play anymore. I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he said, "I didn't really get better last year." I'm not. Wait a second. You just told me you fell out of love with it.
Which is it?
Did you fall in love with it, or did you not get better?
Maybe he did. Yeah, maybe he started to feel that way because he saw
Right.
himself deteriorating and his ability to deteriorate.
Right, but I'm kind of I've always been one of those people, and people have frowned on me for this in the past because if kids come to me and say, "I don't want to play. I just don't want to play anymore." All right, you probably shouldn't then. What? You should encourage them to play. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know if they really don't want to play. If they've thought about it, it's just
Well,
not
who
something.
do you want on your team? Who do you want out?
True.
Who do you
Yeah.
want out there
Yeah,
on
right.
the field?
Yeah.
The ones that want to play.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, so I get that. I
Yeah.
get that answer. Right.
Yeah.
I also am not going to dismiss them that quickly though.
Yeah.
Like I think that sometimes their brains need to be picked a little bit about, okay, why do you say that?
Sure. Right. Absolutely.
Did
right.
you have one experience that's making you make that decision, or do you now have a girlfriend? Right? Did you just
Right.
get your license? Do you have a job? There's a lot of because those are real factors. And again, I go back to the 4 years.
Yeah.
You're gonna have women the rest of your life. or men, depending on your context. I mean, like if you're talking, whoever you're talking to, you're going to have jobs to
for
work
sure.
the
That's a
rest
big
of your
one,
life,
yeah.
right? You got a very limited amount of time to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
And you know, and the specialization, a lot of the argument comes because we're preparing kids to go to college. But let's be honest, that's not what our job is as high school coaches either.
That's true.
I mean, it's part of it.
Right.
It's part for those
Yeah,
who
we
want
won't have that element
for those
there.
who want to.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of that is part of what we do. But you know, if we see our job is, if we're like, look at how many guys I sent to college. You know, I mean, I could throw a number out there all the time of all the guys that have gone to play. But that's, for me, that's not the goal. I want them to love wearing the green and white. I want them to have pride in playing for their school and doing the best, being the best that they can be for their school. Maybe getting their name up on the, getting their team's year that, up on the banner up there, where they can walk in that gym later and show their kids, hey, see that 2024 up there?
Yeah.
Regional champions. That was our baseball team.
Lessons and virtues that last long after
Yeah.
they leave the program.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the main goal. Yeah. Always encourage it. Especially if they love it. If they like the game, encourage it. Encourage them to play for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you
And I would go back to your point. Even if they don't love all the games, it's really good for them to play the ones that they don't love.
Yes.
Because they struggle more. The reason they don't love it is because they probably struggle more with it.
Yeah.
And that struggle is going to make them better at your sport.
Absolutely.
That you want them to love.
Yep. I'm sold on that more than anything.
Absolutely.
For sure.
It's a great argument.
Yep.
Well, good deal. We didn't put our closing music on, did we?
Oh, it's time to go.
Some people would say that.
There it is.
Yeah. There it is.
Thanks for
It's
joining
chill.
us, everyone. If you have a counter to our opinions for multi-sport athletes, let us know. Reach out to us. And
Making sure I covered all the points that I had here.
we'll shame you publicly. No,
That's
just
right.
kidding.
Higher overall sports IQ. Did we talk about that?
I don't think so.
See, there's so many pros, so many benefits. You will develop a higher overall sports IQ.
Just more rounded. And you know what? How about a biblical principle here?
Okay, let's conclude with that.
Moderation. Right? Moderation. Specialization kind of goes against the idea of moderation. Too much of it.
You would think it would be the opposite. You would think, well, you're not playing as many sports. Moderation.
True.
Truth is, you're spending too much time in one area.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. More experiences. Yep, for sure. So,
Good deal.
good talk to you, Coach.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Season, maybe. We'll run out of time.
Baseball
already.
season starts next week. We might see you all again.
Yeah, we'll see you again.